As you can see, he has arrived via sea. Looks like he's on a jet ski. We know he loved these kind of stunts during the election campaign, which won him 72 MPs to the Lib Dems. And well, it looks like he's sailing off into the sunset. I think he's actually arriving at the conference in Brighton, as ever, having the time of his life on the water. Let's bring in our political correspondent, Rob Powell. And Rob, when I said in the last hour he was going to arrive James Bond-like on a jet ski, you laughed at my suggestion, and here we are.
Yeah, I think the 007 of centrist dads, maybe, Matt, with a licence to pull off naff political stunts. I think it was only ever going to be one sort of form of transport for Ed Davey coming in to this Lib Dem conference. I remember a year ago in Bournemouth, he attempted to do a bit of stand-up paddleboarding and I think had to go and do canoeing instead because it was too rough. Glorious weather here in Brighton this weekend, and I think Ed Davey, just behind where the camera is doing a few sort of loop-the-loops out off Brighton Beach. I think the camera, if Joss just pans along, you can probably make out. I think he's the one at the front with the single person, and then behind he's got 4 of his new MPs that he won just a couple of months ago. You've got Josh Babarindi, who's the new Eastbourne MP, just along the coast from where I am now, Anna Sabine from Frome East Somerset, Alison Bennett and Pippa Halings as well from South Cambridgeshire. So wanting to kind of make a bit of an entrance, as you say, during the general election campaign, we got rather used to his aquatic adventures. And clearly, just because they are now out of the campaign and into the Commons with many more MPs, Ed Davey not wanting to abandon that. Look, I think this conference will be a lot of celebration, probably a lot more stuff like this. I was talking to one of Ed Davey's front bench spokespeople earlier who said that she was going down a helter-skelter later today, said with some degree of trepidation as well. Look, not to be a kind of stick in the mud about all of this, and I know this is a point that people made during the election campaign, you do wonder how the Lib Dems will balance this sort of stuff, the stuff that plays well for the TV cameras, with thinking about, you know, their responsibilities now. With 72 MPs, the third party again, guaranteed questions at Prime Minister's questions. You get more committee chairs. We've seen Layla Moran picking up the Health Committee chairmanship as well. So how do they combine this sort of stuff with the more serious stuff? And look, I think it is fair to ask a question about, you know, whether it's necessary to do so much of this stuff now when you're not in campaigning mode. You're essentially in sort of holding the government to account mode, and with lots of serious stuff going on and the Labour government making big calls and calls that weren't necessarily laid out in their election manifesto. How does Ed Davey do a bit of this stuff, but also do the serious stuff as well? I think that will be probably the story of this conference a little bit, how he combines the sort of celebration, feel-good factor that we got used to during the campaign with some of the more serious thinking about how they become the third party in Westminster once again.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Rob, because they will realise very quickly that weekends in Brighton are dominated by stag and hen do's, and if they're talking of helter-skelters and jet skis and flotillas, then they might want to get back to the serious business of politics, which we're going to do with my next question, actually, because let's shift focus to the winter fuel payments. And this is an issue that we're hearing this morning. It continues to be a thorn in the side for the Labour government.
Yeah, the Lib Dems have made it a focus for their first day of conference. We had Wendy Chamberlain, one of Ed Davey's key spokespeople, on air this morning saying it's the wrong cut at the wrong time. Interestingly, though, I thought, when she was asked this morning on breakfast about the sort of policy case for withdrawing it, essentially, do pensioners, rich pensioners, need winter fuel allowance? Because that's what this is doing. It's restricting it to those that claim pension credit, those on the lowest income. And she actually said, look, I think there is a case for thinking about the universality of benefits. She just thought the timing was wrong. So I think there is a question about the degree to which the Lib Dems are just trying to sort of pick holes in the government for the sake of it. They say that that's not what they're doing. They say they want to be a constructive opposition. I think the run into 2029, it is going to be a lot more difficult a fight for them in 2029 when they haven't got a sort of beleaguered Conservative government to push against. And so if they can kind of carve themselves out maybe as a more constructive opposition than the Tories, that may be the electoral way to try and hang on to some of these seats where, bluntly, I think people did lend their votes to the Lib Dems in order to get the Tories out. As you suggest, though, Labour, I think, facing opposition from other parties, but also facing a degree of opposition from within the broader Labour family towards its its current quite gloom approach towards the economy and towards policy, we've got hold of a motion that's been prepared by the Unite Union in which it wants to put to Labour conference, or is going to put to Labour conference next weekend, where it essentially talks about there needing to be a government with vision, as it puts it, about people not voting for pensioners to lose their winter fuel allowances, people voting for change. They're calling for extra taxes on wealth. They're calling for fiscal rules to be dumped and more borrowing. Sharon Graham, the Unite General Secretary, saying that this is a cruel policy around winter fuel payments and that they should rethink and that they will be holding Labour's feet to the fire. So plenty, I think, of scope for tension at Labour's conference this time next week in Liverpool. I think here in Brighton this weekend is probably going to be a much more celebratory affair, probably typified by this entrance that we're seeing at the moment. I think Ed Davey is just doing a few loop-the-loops, staying well clear of the fishermen on the harbour arm here. I don't think he wants to pick any battles with them this morning, and I think he's off to the marina after that, where he'll be doing a few interviews with journalists, and then he's got his main speech on Tuesday afternoon. I think the policy is probably going to be quite similar to what we've grown used to, talking about social care, talking about his own experiences caring for his son and how he believes that the government, the Labour government, isn't doing enough to prioritise that. So a sort of similar approach, I think, to the election campaign. Some of the fun stuff, but also trying to mix it together with policy as well.